Welcome, music lovers, to PTV's The Performers, the show where we explore the vibrant music scene of North Shore, Massachusetts, by hosting local artists for a performance and interview to find out how they've made it a hobby, side hustle, or career. My name is Maddie Wann for PTV, and we're on a mission to uncover the hidden gems and spotlight the stars of our local artist scene. Today, we have someone who's not only a musical composer and performer, but a full-on performance artist. Hailing from Beverly, Massachusetts, he is the mind behind the project known as Colorbound, a creative fusion of dance, music, fashion, and performance art. So join us as we delve into the vibrant world of Colorbound, and please welcome Damian Panicali. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
Of course. You're a really all-encompassing artist, but I want to start with where it all began for you. What medium of art first impacted your life?
So I started out at like a Harbor Light school, so like a Montessori school. And they're like really interested in introducing things to you at a young age and then catering to that as you get older. And I feel like my path always took me to music. So I started off with like violin at the age of 3. And then like, I think I was very interested in the piano after that. And I think I was like 5 years old and I was like, I want to do piano. But my mom was like, you can only pick one instrument. Can't afford all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I picked piano, and then I think I was always athletic a little bit too. So how like young boys are, you know, like they always want to be in some sort of team or feel like they contribute to something.
Sure.
And my sister was in dance, so she was signed up, and my mom was like, oh, let's try this out, you know. And by a young age, my mom was always in love with Michael Jackson and everything, so it was almost like, oh, I love watching him on TV. Let me do the same thing. And she dropped me off at the dance studio, and I did boys hip hop with a bunch of other boys. And then the year after that, they recruited me into the competition team there. Mm-hmm. And they were like, yeah, we know you don't do ballet or jazz or all these other genres, but like, we'll throw you in there and he'll learn, and I believe in him, kind of thing. So dance kind of became the priority, and piano kind of went to the side. So I say I would start with music, mm-hmm. but dance is when I like really, I think, found my first love of art.
Wow.
So
that's really special. Like, I mean, there's a lot of classical music with dance rehearsals, right? It's kind of like that bass line. There's always a piano in a dance studio kind of thing. Yes. So you really had that full exposure to the arts. Were your parents involved with your musical and art love? Were they? I can imagine it's a lot of rehearsals and practices and performances all the time as a young kid. Were they? Did they help you kind of grow into that?
Yeah, so we would have to practice like all the little routines down in my basement every single night. Mm-hmm. And we would be down there until like 10 o'clock. Or I think once dance became the priority, my mom was also pushing me to do the piano lessons at the house, you mm-hmm. know, and I really didn't like it at that point. I only trained in classical music, so I never took mm-hmm. the leap to jazz, which seemed like the more artistic path for piano, just because classical was so regimented.
Yeah.
And I think with even dance, my path kind of took me to tap. Like tap was always my favorite. Still to this day, I feel like that's where I excel the most. And it just gave me an opportunity to like explore myself in that field, where classical or ballet, it's very just structured, you know, mm-hmm. very perfectionist mindset.
Sure.
So I think when there wasn't a path to continue to follow down for classical music. And I couldn't express myself, like I couldn't dance. It didn't seem like something that I loved anymore. Where when you first get introduced to something, you're just so enthralled in learning it. And then you've learned it, or at least what you think you understand about it. And then when you start realizing these limitations that you have, you know, and you start to see the box that you're starting to be in, you know, you just, you kind of draw away from it. So that's how I felt about music at the time when I was a kid, and then dance seemed like something to explore. So.
Yeah.
But going back to your question about my parents, they always catered to that. My mom always had like a very artistic way about her. She always thought she was supposed to be on stage. Psychics in the past would tell her like, this is not the life that you'll be on stage.
Wow.
So it was weird. I think she kind of lived through me a little bit with the stuff, and she tried to cater to it as much as possible.
Absolutely. That's really special. So were you continually involved in dance throughout high school? What was kind of the next step?
So dance continued throughout like middle school, high school, and even to this day. So I'm currently enrolled in like a school for dance, and I think will always be a part of it. But I think when I hit high school, I realized that it wasn't limited to dance. You know, dance wasn't the thing that was going to be the end all be all, you know. It was like the introduction to me starting to find what I liked about myself, or what I liked to see myself doing. And then I think when I started seeing the limitations of dance as well, I started getting into other mediums and said, okay, how do I understand myself more?
Okay.
Because I think anything that you get like super interested in and super knowledgeable about, you start to see like the corners, you start to see the room that you're in, you start to see like the people around you, it starts becoming some sort of competition with yourself or competition with others, even if you don't want it to be or not, you know. So sorry, I went
that's okay.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. It's like there's always this idea of taking inspiration from others and learning from others, and kind of trying to find where you fit in as an individual, and kind of how to make your art unique. And it sounds like even from a young age, you could kind of see those boundaries that other people were putting on art, whether it's violin lessons or a jazz lesson. It's something that I feel like every artist goes through, but it sounds like you figured that out pretty young, and that's allowed you to try many different things, which is very unique. It's cool. Okay, so should we listen to the first one?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm super excited to see this.
Yeah.
I can give like a little preface. I think I'm in this point in my life where it feels like a lot of destruction, not in a bad way, more of just like making room for the new, you know. And I don't think the purpose is violence, or I don't think the purpose is to remove anything. It's more to just comment that I'm changing, or the things that I'm doing is changing, and I'm not really trying to hold myself to the past anymore about what I've made in the past either. I don't want to always align with the same story all of the time. And I'm constantly trying to like redevelop myself, not feel like I'm pigeonholed to one thing all the time. And I think that's what we touched upon a little bit.
Yeah.
So it feels like destruction is the theme right now for some reason. I keep leaning back to it, even if it's something that I'm purposefully doing or not. And this is kind of a comment on that. I talked to my friend about this recently. He sent me a poem by this older gentleman that was passing away, and they asked him, what would you give advice to younger people? And he said, write a poem, whatever's coming to you. Write the best poem that you could possibly do, and then throw it out. And it was about like the pursuit of just doing something to further understand yourself, not for this product that you walk away with. So the art seems like that right now, where I don't really care if people are paying attention or listening, but it seems like I'm more willing to just discover myself through the process of it, rather than thinking that it's this thing that I can sell, or it's this thing that people attach themselves to. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Too much, maybe a little too much.
No, that's great. Yes, that's beautiful. I'd love to see.
Okay. Where?
All right.
Reverence, please. He once said, "Be ye in the world, but not of the world." What is the world? Why must we get out? An iron rod across an empty plain leading to a tree. Dark mist fills the air, obscuring nothing to see. I was told to follow that iron rod through darkness towards God. Gentle cord became iron chain, holding the iron rod. Do I remain? Be ye in the world, but not of the world. Light and twilight, contention and compromise. Two masters, two sides, champions and gods, love for the one, hate for the other. Chaos, reverence, weakness, power, the darkness, the iron rod. Reconciliation with the world I live in led to the creation of another. I chose to inhabit my own world, the one that I create. Yet I still walk alongside that rod, walking my own rate. The chaotic world I bring about to foresee, but in reverence, I hope to someday reach that tree.
Class, no brains, no talents, no fame or friends.
I have no money, no beauty, no class, no brains, no talents, no fame or friends.
I have no money, no beauty, no class, no brains, no talents, no fame or friends.
I have no money, no beauty, no class, no brains, no talents, no fame or friends.
All right. Let's talk about that. So I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
The samples that you're using in this music, what kind of inspiration are you taking, and where are you finding? I'm not familiar with any of that. So where are you finding inspiration for this?
So a clothing designer from New York City, he goes to the New School, and he was a friend of my girlfriend's growing up. She did ballet growing up at Miami City School of Ballet, and he was a male dancer there. And now he's pursuing fashion. And I met up with him for the first time, and he was putting his first show together, and he was looking for music, and he was kind of talking to me about it because he knew I made music, and we were just kind of getting into conversation over some food. And I don't know who introduced it first, but I was like, I'll definitely do music for your fashion show. Or he was looking for someone to do fashion, music for the fashion show. And I started to look at the things that I had already, and I was going through all these things, and then I think I made that song prior to him asking me.
Mm-hmm.
And what's so funny is because that speech was given to me after I made the beat, and it's actually a poem he wrote.
Oh wow.
And he has a very like religious background. He's a Mormon, and he does a lot of missions
Mm-hmm.
for the Mormon Church, and he's lived like many different places, whether that be like Brazil or Japan or many different places. And it's like super interesting to hear where he's been and all of that stuff. So when we started to getting to conversation, he was like, oh, I have this speech, this poem I wrote. I really want it to be in the show. So me and my friend out in New York called Steph, he goes to Manhattan School of Music, Steph Clement, we put this body of work around 18 minutes long, and this is the first section of that first song. And it was supposed to just be fashion show music that people walk to. And I think the more I listened to it, it became this like separate entity than just the fashion music. It felt like, okay, like we made this, like this could be something that could be released on its own. And then when Nick asked me for and introduced this opportunity to me, felt like it was like, yeah, this could be the music that like releases under my own name. And it just felt like this full circle moment where it fit this one kind of thing that he asked me of, but it also fit how I was feeling at the time. And definitely doing something out of my comfort zone too. Like I think in the past I've made like a lot of pop music, so very dance heavy though, of course, because of the background and stuff. But this, as the songs kind of progress, it has that same sort of theme, and this feels kind of like the introduction to that. So yeah, I think when you initially asked me for the 3 songs, it was like, wow, these 3 songs that I made for the fashion show music, like this felt like the perfect introduction into like visualizing that other than models walking at a fashion show that wasn't filmed, so it already had this story about it. And I think the prompt that Nick introduced initially, where it was the story over time, it felt like the songs that were included in the fashion show also had this introduction, this climax, and then also like the grand finale resolution. So it felt like the perfect opportunity to tell the story of right now, even though it capitalizes on where I started, where I am now, and where it's going. So
Sure.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Is there anything you want to set us up with for this one? What can we expect?
I'll let the surprise happen. It was very fun filming this.
Okay.
I just had a lot of joy, and just seems like that just keeps happening right now. You know, like it, just everything's coming together, and I don't know how it's going to come together, but it does. And sometimes it gets messy, you know, but I feel like this is a perfect like climax, and I don't know, like a good rising resolution too. I don't know how to determine it. I almost want you to experience. I don't want to ruin it for you.
Okay. Let's give it a go. Okay. So you built it, and then here we are in Act 2.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how this second act kind of fits into the story that you're telling.
I think with this, it almost felt like it was the perfect kind of step to take. For the past like maybe 3 years, I've been kind of practicing painting as a medium, and I haven't found a lot of boundaries in it. And I think that kind of talks about what we started at the beginning, was painting became a big thing for me. Felt like something that I could express, you know, without the box or the boundaries or any of that thing. And in the past, I did a lot of visual projects using painting and stuff. So didn't feel so much like destruction as it did adding what wasn't there. And I think, again, it just pays homage to the medium that I just added to a bunch of different art things that I really enjoy. And my goal one day is to like encompass them all as one entity and not keep them separate, where painting is painting and I can only progress as a painter being a painter, or as a dancer I can only progress as a dancer being a dancer. It feels like as time goes on, I've always been asking for the greater ups to push these things together, that they didn't feel like separate entities. And when I can bring other elements in, other mediums to my art, whether that be music with dance or dance with painting, or, you know, I want to use those elements. I want to use my gifts all and put them in a box, or not in a box, but more of a basket, you know, and carry them with me. And I felt like this one kind of spoke about what was important to me about painting. Just because I'm a very abstract painter, I'm not the seascapes that you see around Beverly, you know, sure, of the ocean and stuff, and hyperrealism and that's gorgeous, you know. Like I really admire those things, and when I go into galleries with my parents, those are the things that they stare at, those are the things that they love. But I've always been an abstract painter. I've always been kind of getting the feeling out rather than trying to recreate what I've seen. So
sure.
And I had a painting teacher this past year that said this really amazing thing that I loved. She said, everything is a self-portrait. And even if it's not realism, or it's not a depiction of me, it's always going to be a self-portrait, you know, no matter if it resembles me or not. So,
right.
Yeah, it felt like that.
That's powerful.
This second thing. So,
yeah, that's so interesting. Everything is a portrait. Okay. So you have all these mediums that you are exploring: music, art, dance. When people ask you, who are you? Like, what do you do? What does Damian do? Yeah. Like, what do you feel is most representative of you?
That's always a hard question with me. Because I've always been in the dance world, probably more than the rest of these mediums. And I always had a strong dislike for dancers being a dancer as a personality trait, you know, like out of their five, you know, like I'm energetic, I'm fun, I'm this, but I'm also a dancer. Like dancers, like part of their personality. And I always said, like, I don't want to walk down the street and someone see me and be like, oh, he's a dancer. You know, I can see it. I always had like a very blue collar approach to dance, where it's like, when I'm there, I'm the dancer. You know, when I walk out though, you can't point me out in the crowd that I'm that type of person. So it's hard for me to even introduce myself and say, hey, I'm this, you know, or hey, this is the medium that represents me. It's always been like something that I disliked that people put me in a box for. Going back to the box thing, like I think it all represents me. And of course, I think certain people that I meet down those paths, whether that be painting, whether that be music or the dancer, they'll put me in that and say, okay, you know, that's what represents you. That's what you're good at. But I really don't know, like, what represents me, you know. I think it's really, truly the connection that I have with the person determines what medium they see me as that I'm excelling in.
Sure. Because
there's nothing against the dancers that I dance with, but I don't think that they want to acknowledge that I do other things. And even if even my teachers don't, you know, they only see this one thing. You're a dancer, you're going to be a dancer. There's only certain amount of jobs out there for you, only certain things you can do. And maybe people with music feel that same way, you know? Like, oh, I can only play live at this one venue, or, you know, I can't see myself doing other things. But I think it's always saying, like, yeah, I can be in these other spaces, and I can excel at other things. And I don't have to be limited to this one thing representing myself. And I hope other people feel the same way, that they can excel at one thing, but they should be willing to try other things to understand themselves in other ways that will better help themselves in the thing that they're great at, you know? And I think the more I learn about music, the more I get better at dance. The more I get better at painting, the better I get to express myself in other things, you know? So I think it all helps me. And the more I just relate with art as a thing, as something that I have to do, that's better for me than to say, this is, you know, I am this. And I don't know if that's like the imposter syndrome either, you know, that I feel like someone's gonna question me and be like, oh, you really a dancer? Let me see this then. You know, we're at a wedding. Like, let me see you bust a move out there, you know? Dance has never been like that for me either.
Everyone has expectations on from artists, right? They're like, I get what you're saying. Like a dancer, like they're gonna expect you to like be the perfect dancer and have every move and like be, you know, graceful and whatnot. And I like to think of art as what was the saying? It's like a translation. So everyone's gonna have a different dialect, right? And it's like, this is how I'm gonna translate this, you know, classical piece that people have been playing for hundreds of years, and yet any artist can put their own flair on it, and they can make it their own and kind of leave their stamp. And kind of sounds like that's what you're doing. It's like you can't assume art. You can't assume what the artist is portraying and the story that they're telling. It's, you have to kind of let them tell that themselves.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. So this performance, we've been planning since May. So me and the two other dancers here are the boys that I grew up dancing with. So I grew up dancing from age 6 to 9 before David, one of the dancers, came in, and he was younger than me. And the other boy in the dance routine as well, he's 17 years old. So he came in when I was like 13 maybe. So he became another brother of mine. And I consider these people brothers. I see them every single time that I'm home from school. And David's at this point where he's like smarter than me. And he can make all the decisions, and I'm even asking for guidance from him. And I feel like any sibling could say that as they get older, like as the age gap kind of shortens, that that you get a lot of guidance from one another. So we put this performance together and choreographed this over like maybe 4 or 5 rehearsals, and each one was like about 3 hours. So it took us like around like 12 to 15 hours of choreography. One of the times we were just sitting in my room listening to it with the big loudspeakers and saying, what the hell are we going to do to this? Yeah. Because if you already heard the music so far, it's like, it's very like house, EDM, techno kind of music, where me and all of these dancers, like we grew up very like classical or traditional. So we aren't very like hip hop oriented or strong bass elements or drum elements, even though we know how to react to those things in improv. It's harder to choreograph for us and say, okay, this is going to be a defined thing now. So why this event happened here is because we planned this out in May, going back to that. 3 months goes by, right? We get a call on the day before the performance goes, this past Friday. And they say, performance is off. The place that the studio performance venue's in said, we heard there's a rave going on. We want to cancel this. We heard there's free alcohol being there. We don't want this type of energy here. And if you still throw the concert without our approval, then we'll have the Beverly PD there. We'll cancel the whole show. We'll shut it down. So
Wow.
we're in line buying the alcohol for the event. And Robbie gets a call, and we get pulled out of line. And we're just having a conversation like, it's 6 o'clock that night, and we're supposed to be setting up for the concert that night.
Yeah.
And we have 24 hours to figure out a new venue for the performance. So we run around Beverly, Danvers, Salem, everywhere, to calling even Peabody Black Box Theater. Hey, can you do this for me? Everybody's obviously home. It's like 7 o'clock at night, you know?
Yeah.
So because we spent that first hour being like, what are we going to do?
Panic.
Yeah. So one thing leads to another. And I was like, we're not going to allow this to stop us. We're going to pivot. We worked way too hard to just let all the people down, you know? Like, what are we going to do? Are we going to stand there and say, okay, is it better that we hold our integrity, right? Because we don't have a professional venue to throw this at, and just say, okay, we're going to give all the money back for the pre-sale? Or are we going to say, we're going to try to throw the best concert possible with what we have? And we said, no, let's keep throwing the concert. So I convinced my parents that night at 11 o'clock at night, saying, can we just do it in the garage?
Yeah.
And my dad was like, I can't make an answer. I'm going to go to sleep. Like, we're not doing this right now.
Oh, no.
And then my mom was like, okay, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because she grew up doing concerts in her garage when she was a kid. So it felt like this, like,
Yeah.
again, living through me a little bit, where it was
Absolutely.
like, okay, let's do this thing. So we end up throwing the concert at my garage. We buy a tent, 14 by 14, and put it in front of the garage. So there's like this ticketing entering service, and we put a fire pit in my front lawn to create these different type of environments. And we had everything. We had everything set up other than the venue. I wasn't going to allow that to get in my way, you know, and I wasn't going to pout about it anymore because there was nothing that we could do. And there was nothing AOA could have done either, the venue that we signed up with. So we did that thing, and this performance ended up being better than what we thought it was going to be at AOA. And it felt like the perfect storm. It felt like exactly what it was supposed to be. And it still felt professional. It still didn't feel like a garage. And it was just just an amazing night. I couldn't have asked for it to go better. And just in my house, in my environment, and all the loved ones and family and friends that were there, you know. And this concert was actually on my birthday as well, so it has this own like special energy around it. So
Sure. A true homecoming.
yeah, exactly. So
Awesome.
it was very special. So, and I really enjoyed how it came out. And I remember just saying, like, I love you guys so much, and just hugging my brothers after the performance and being like, damn, we did that, you know?
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, I can't wait to watch. All right, so in your rehearsals for this, right? You said you started back in May. What were your intentions with the choreography? What kind of thoughts were you guys using as inspiration to kind of put this all together?
We wanted to capitalize on how the concert was flowing already. A lot of electronic artists were going before us. So we felt, and I always do this, I always take into account who am I performing with, who's going before me, and how does the environment, what is around the choreography? What does the room look like? Who are the people that are going to be there? How is the audience set up? What's the warm up to us? What's going to be after? And it's so funny because we never thought that tap was going to be a part of it when we first initially started. But I think as time went on and we were choreographing each song, it felt like it fit. And each of these dancers that were with me, Shavik and David were their names, they excelled at tap a lot as well. And I even, again, going back to David being smarter than me, I think he's better at tap than me as well. And it just felt like what it was supposed to be. And it felt like the perfect showcasing of our skills in all types of dance that we could have shown that day. The crowd was so close to us and we couldn't really get away from them, because there's moments in the performance that we almost started a mosh pit where I'm just going into the crowd and grabbing people and throwing them into the circle so we can all like just start going. I'm grabbing my dad at some point, my sister, my friends, and just getting everybody in this pit of just enjoying the music and letting go. And I think that's why one of my friends expressed to me that they felt like they were seen, because they were taken out of their comfort zone because they couldn't have done that for themselves. That they enjoyed the music or they were reacting to it, but they felt some sort of fear that they would be looked at or judged that they were in the circle. And I almost didn't give them that opportunity. I just did that for them. Or also David and Shavik did that as well, where they just started grabbing people and putting them in the circle. You know, it wasn't their choice.
Yeah.
And I think I grabbed people that were just a little nervous to be in front of an audience sometimes. And that's definitely like speaking upon my dad. You know, he's probably not wanting to dance in front of other people. But I think when you're just unwillingly dragged into a circle to dance, whether that be at a wedding or an event that you're celebrating with your friends, you know, it becomes this freeing thing, and you're so present that you're not really thinking about, okay, what is my body doing right now? Am I trying to adjust myself so I look somewhat presentable to others, or I don't look cringy, or you know, like none of that really matters when your loved one or someone else that like wants to enjoy the time with you drags you in. And I always say that that's the most powerful type of dance, is when your like uncle's had a couple of drinks and they and you drag him into the front, you know, and he does this thing that just comes out of his soul. And it seems like that's the type of dance that I'm very drawn to, is that it's undeniable, it's something coming from the heart, and I'd way rather see that than someone that is lifeless and doesn't really care about the movement that's coming out of them, and it's just given to them and they have no purpose behind it. So I draw a lot of inspiration from seeing the everyday, let's say, person dance, you know, something that just naturally comes out. They're letting go.
So dance and performance art is very nuanced and abstract. What's your favorite outlandish art piece? It's
so funny because recently, I think in the past year, I've been studying a lot of just out there performing artists, whether that be in music. I think he's a very controversial one, but Gigi Allen was definitely like a very out there person. Like he's going into the audience and making out with a girl randomly, and then he's just like naked out there and he's throwing fists at people and destroying his instruments. And it's just like the unexpected nature of performing artists that you don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Is like that special territory where you're walking away with something, learning something, and maybe you even walk away with, oh, I didn't like that, or I did like that. So I'm trying to think about my favorite outlandish art. I don't know why Gigi came to my mind, because he just felt like he didn't care. And it's not any specific song that he performed to. It's just his nature of being himself, even though he was going through things and he didn't make the best decisions all the time.
What was the transition like, going from your dance lessons with jazz and classical and moving into this more abstract performance kind of unique style? What was that transition like?
It started with defiance. Like, it started with saying I was something more than what they were telling me I was. And I think it was also my inspirations. Through my years in New York City, when I got there in 2018 initially, when I started going to school there, I think when I grew up, I didn't have a lot of exposure to people in poverty or homelessness or people in certain situations that weren't in their control. And when I was experiencing that, there was an unsaid communication between me and the people that were experiencing something on the street or in the subway or throughout New York. There's this unsaid communication, whether they're on drugs and they're over, or they're traveling with all their stuff and whatever they have. There's something being communicated there, whether it's vocalized or not, whether they're communicating, hey, I need help, or I need some sort of money to continue to survive, or they're just sitting there. I always try to push the definition of dance in that way, where I always felt like dance was something being communicated without vocalizing it. That's how I felt dance was. And it doesn't always have to be with music, that there's some sort of communication happening, but it's not vocalized. And I felt like I got a lot of those messages and those communications from those people that were struggling. And I took that as inspiration for my own dance, that I could sit in a chair and consider it dance. I could be feeling something, and reacting to it. And I could be communicating it to other people, and they'd feel the same exact thing without me saying a word. I realized the power in that the everyday movement can be dance as well. It doesn't just have to be the kick, the leap, the turn. It could be that the everyday movement is as passionate and as is coming from the heart as those other things that are put on to us. So I took inspiration from that those things were important, and that as dance becomes more technical and more like a sport, we're losing the art form, we're losing the storytelling element of it. So when I was moving in that abstract way, like in that abstract direction, let's say, I was taking inspiration from the mundane, or I was taking inspiration from the everyday, and going back to saying, okay, let's strip all the technique away and let's see what we can do, So that's what I've been experimenting with lately. And this performance was a little bit different because it's such a strong music heavy genre.
Yeah.
So obviously we had to dance a little bit more in this one, but I've definitely been drawing inspiration from those type of people, and they've been very inspirational. And yeah, I want to pay ode, you know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
All right. So let's move on to Act 3.
Oh my gosh.
I know. The grand finale. All right. We've touched on notes of destruction, on breaking out of the box, people's expectations. Where are we ending this story? Where are you leaving the viewer?
Just do it. Just shut up and do it. Just go out there, figure out yourself through things that you love to do. Don't feel like you're gonna walk away with something. Don't feel like it's something to be sold or something to carry with you. Just, I think in this day and age, we always want to hold on to everything, especially that, like, the phones and our access to photos of the past, you know. We always feel like there's something that we can hold on to. And especially with art nowadays, we always feel like it's something that, like, a package to be sold. So it feels like I'm not really trying to walk away with anything here. And this desk feels like something I'm creating with my hands, but also something I'm willing to leave behind and not have utility in the future with the object.
All right. Wow.
Drop the beat. Move to the rhythm. 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 Drop the beat.
Those overalls are really cool. So you built it, you paint it, and you destroy it. It's quite a story. And there's so many, getting to know you and getting to know this story from your perspective and kind of seeing where you came from as an artist makes it really powerful. Makes it like a little tiny view into who you are. It's pretty special.
Thank you. Thank you.
So now that we have all 3 acts, we've seen all 3 acts. What do you expect the viewer, the audience to kind of walk away with? Well, we kind of touched on this before, but
Yeah.
You've told your story. What would you expect people to take from this and kind of take into their own lives?
The more that you just do things to understand yourself, and the less you do things walking away thinking that you're going to have a product from that, the better I think that you're going to be as a person. Yeah. I think a lot of people wouldn't fully understand where I'm coming from at first. But again, like any painting that you see in the MoMA, at the PEM, whether that be like a red dot in the center of some sort of art piece, and then they kind of describe that it's their blood of their grandmother from 1945 or something, you know what I mean? They attach some sort of meaning to it. I don't think that it's going to gravitate to everybody. And I don't think that's my job to do that either. I think that the people that feel something when they watch it will understand where I'm coming from when they initially watch it. And I think the people that don't, they'll really not ever feel something from it, even if they understand where I'm coming from. And and sometimes it takes me a couple of months to understand where I'm coming from. I think talking with you now, I understand where I was going with it at the time. But when I was doing it, I think most of the time I don't. Usually it's just something instinctual that's coming out of me. And it seems like the time to capitalize on that. It seems like what's coming out of me. And I should be listening to that instinct. Rather than trying to make some sort of conceptual movement out of it. Because in time, it will show and reflect my life and what I'm feeling at the moment. I don't need to push that to do that. And I think my instincts are way smarter than whatever could come out of me when I'm trying to overthink it or attach some sort of meaning that's very internalized and personal to me. I think it's more of a reflection of what I was feeling at the time, and just an overarching story of my life, I think, as we walk through it. So
what was it like recording this this last piece? What was the process like with recording and finding inspiration?
So when the fashion designer came to me, or came to us, because we were all at dinner together, me and this other guy that created it named Steph. He had 2 weeks before the show. So it was a spring-summer fashion show for his label, his first one ever. And we had 2 weeks to create it. So a lot of the music I had was already pre-made, but it was almost in a process of me rediscovering it and me further saying, okay, what can I do with this right now? I think initially we had a lot of ideas about where we could go with it, but I think I had some things just in the vault that I was like, okay, let me show this other guy. I'm a little self-conscious about showing him. Maybe he'll like it, maybe he doesn't. I don't really care. If he doesn't like it, we'll just move on. We'll make something right now, and we'll get it ready in 2 weeks. So when I showed it to him, he actually really loved what I was showing him. It's so funny because you make it in the past, and you never know what you're going to do with it. A lot of things, and I think a lot of artists feel the same way, is that they just get left in the vault. A lot of great art just gets left behind because they don't know what they're going to do with it. They don't know how it aligns with right now. So we kind of just leave it behind. But when this opportunity arose and we had like 2 weeks to come up with stuff, I was like, okay, what do I have that can apply to this? What can I have that fits that vibe that would be like very interested for a model to walk down the runway to? And some of the songs came about where I was just like, okay, let me put this to the side and I'm going to show it to him. And he liked it. And then we were like, okay, what can we add to this right now? Like how can we elevate this experience? Because it was really just like a loop. It was really just like there was a couple elements there, whether that be the bass line, the drum track, and the melody. Like there was no voice elements like the ones that you were hearing throughout the video. So once that kind of came about, we were taking it from a listener's perspective rather than just being in it, creating it when I was. So now that we had the fashion show music prompt, we were like, okay, what can we put over this to match the vibe that he's really trying to create here? And how can we create music that would be impactful for models to walk down the runway to? And it's not something that feels repetitive. It's not something that gets wrapped up in, okay, this is something that I could have made, or something that didn't feel unique, which I felt this artist clothing was at the time. So I think one thing led to another, and we just used the music that I created in the past, plus some new elements that we were using from a listener's perspective, and we created this music. And it really came together really quick. Like I had a show at the same time. Like, so I was at rehearsals until like 9 o'clock at night some nights, 10 o'clock at night. So he had to come over, and we were doing it until 2 o'clock in the morning, and then I was waking up at 9 o'clock the next day and going to school. Yeah. So it was just like we were really grinding, and it was every single night that he was coming over, and it was just like really nice project to work with. And it was initially made for a fashion show, but it turned into something that we're making music videos with Nick now. And now it turned into something that I'm performing with other dancers. So one thing when you lead out to make it this one entity that only fits in this type of atmosphere, it seemed like it crossed the gap between other things that I could do with it. And I think that's all I really want for my art, that it's not just music. Now I can incorporate it to clothing. Now I can incorporate it to dance. Now I can incorporate it to the other things that are really important to me, like painting, like destroying something in an act of defiance or art. So it just felt like this full circle moment that was inevitable, and I couldn't ask more from my music at this point, where it feels like I can apply it to everything else in my life. And I couldn't say that about my music in the past, even though I loved it. Like, even though I felt like I could show it to my mom and she could jam out to it, like, it was bigger than that, you know? Even if it didn't fit into the top 40 type of sound.
Right.
It fit into what I was creating on the side, what all of my art forms together. So that was very important to me.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if I went out with that intention.
Mm.
I just asked for that from God or other elements of my life, and it gave me that privilege.
Yeah.
It answered my prayer. So
Sure.
yeah.
Came out organically too.
Yeah.
It's great. I hope you enjoyed the story and art of our talent this week. Thank you, Damian, for representing the arts and showing off your skills and passions. If you want to go ahead and plug where you can find your music and content, please do.
You can find Colorbound music and videos on mostly every platform. I have a YouTube channel. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Music. I also distributed the music on August 18th. So the music that you just saw in the videos are everywhere.
Amazing. Check it out. Thank you, Damian. And that's a wrap on this episode of The Performers. Thank you for tuning in, and see you next time.